back too. Pascal, the wide receiver, depending on if T.Y. Hilton is back, could possibly put up wide receiver 3 numbers. Big goose egg this last week. Brissett's going to start. I think he's an okay streamable option, but not great. And Ebron and Doyle, I think, could put up okay numbers as streamable options at tight end. I really think that the Colts, come back and win this after having a rough week last week. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a very high-scoring game overall, so we'll go 17-14 Colts.
I'll go Jacksonville 20-14. Just to let you know who my wide receivers are, by the way. I got Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins as my starters, and then if I want to go ahead and look at who would be my reserve guys, I have Galladay and I have Chark. So it's not a bad group, is it?
That's a solid group of wide receivers there.
Yeah, well, that's why I enjoy playing in this league. And if you want to know who my running backs are, now that I am able to tell you right now, I got Josh Jacobs, Melvin Gordon, Leonard Fournette. And Leonard Fournette would be my flex player. So it means that somebody's going to have to sit. It looks like Galladay might, unless I'm going to bite my words. I don't know. Just an FYI. Any ideas, recommendations?
As of right now, if it's full PPR, I would probably still stick with Galladay.
Would you really?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, I still have some time. But all right, just thought I'd throw it at you anyway. So yeah, I'll give Jacksonville 20-14. All right, well, I'll talk about the Miami Dolphins. The Buffalo Bills get them down over at what I call Joe Robbie Stadium.
I think the Bills should come away with a win here. Their defense is just so good. Really, it's their offense that has sputtered and been very lackluster over the last few weeks. The Dolphins' defense gives up the 7th most amount of points to quarterbacks, the 5th most to running backs, the 9th most to wide receivers. Really, I think if the Bills can get anything going, Josh Allen is always going to be a streamable option at quarterback. I have him starting in 2 10-man leagues because of how well he runs the ball. That alone right there helps him score very well in fantasy. So I like Josh Allen as a streamable option this week. I think that Singletary could get going again against a really terrible Dolphins defense. Brown and Beasley, I definitely think, are solid options for this week, as well as streaming options, kind of wide receiver 3 area. As far as the Dolphins go, the Bills' only downside on defense is the run game and giving up, the 9th most amount of fantasy points to running backs. And over the last 5 weeks, have given up 6.5 points over projection to running backs on average. So it could mean a good game for Ballage, or Kalen Ballage. Ballage just isn't a very good running back. So for me, this really is a wash. I don't think the talent lives up to the opportunity in this case. And so for me, I'm putting the Bills on this one. I think that the Bills offense will get going a little bit, but not necessarily as much as everyone hopes. So I'll say 20-7 Bills over the Dolphins.
Well, it doesn't hurt that Frank Gore would like to tell the Dolphins, you made a mistake letting me go. I'm from that area.
True.
But for some reason or another, I don't know why, I'm going to pick the Dolphins in this one by a score of 17-13.
Would that be 3 in a row for the Dolphins?
Yeah, it would. That was unheard of before, but boy, I'll tell you, that really was. But Brian Flores is establishing a really good culture there. He really is. And I'm not one of those South Floridians that I'm going to get too high on this team, but you know what? They don't have to play for a winless season about what quarterback they're not going to get, whatever. You don't know. I mean, they got so many draft choices. They probably looked at the Jaguars where you can draft them anywhere you want if you think they're any good. And not be limited.
There are so many quarterbacks that are going to be available in this draft. I think that Miami will be fine with whichever one they end up getting, because I'm pretty sure that they've come to the conclusion that Josh Rosen is not the guy. If they continue to start Fitzpatrick and aren't just giving the ball to Rosen, I'm pretty sure that Rosen is. I think that Rosen is relegated to being a backup quarterback the rest of his career. I think he's kind of shown that he isn't. I mean, not that he had a whole lot of talent to work with in Miami or in Arizona for the most part, but I think that really Rosen is kind of he will be a backup for the rest of his career, and I think that the Miami Dolphins go out and draft a quarterback this year.
Yeah, my advice to Josh Rosen is I hope you're renting a house. That's all I can tell you. Now, I know last week the Ravens got me 27 points against the Bengals, but they're not going to have nearly that kind of success, even though they're hosting the Houston Texans, a team that they have a lot of weapons.
Yeah, they do have a lot of weapons. They have been very good on defense so far this year. They've been playing a lot better over the last few weeks, really, to be honest. I'm pulling up that game's notes here real quick. The Ravens have been really stifling. Every single position has been underproducing against the Ravens over the last 5 weeks. Quarterbacks 4.5 points under projection. Wide receivers and running backs 3 points under projection. So it's really the Ravens defense has been very, very good. Now Texas defense has struggled against quarterbacks, and when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson who can not only throw the ball very well but run like the wind, that's going to cause some major problems for this Texas defense and their secondary especially. So I think the Ravens probably win this game, but I think it could possibly be a somewhat high-scoring game. I'm starting Watson as a quarterback no matter what. He's, I want to say, the number 2 or 3 quarterback in terms of average points per game, behind, I want to say, Russell Wilson and right now Lamar Jackson. So I think that Watson is a solid start. Really, other than that, I think Hopkins you're going to start no matter what. Fuller is an interesting guy coming off of injury. We're still not fully sure if he's going to play or not. If he doesn't, Kenny Stills moves in that role, and I haven't seen enough out of Kenny Stills to make me want to use him in any size league for fantasy. So, and then Darren Fells, like I said, it's not a great matchup. I think he's stream worthy if you're desperate at tight end with some of the bye weeks and the injuries that have happened. So, as far as the Ravens go, you're going to start Jackson. Ingram, not a great matchup. You're going to start him, though. I still think he puts up running back 2 numbers. And as far as the wide receivers go for the Ravens, I think Hollywood Brown is in for a good game. I think that Boykin could put up flex-worthy numbers in 14-team leagues and larger. It's, I think that Andrews at tight end is going to have another solid week. He's, the main target that Jackson looks for. So, again, I think in this game I'd probably go 28-24 Ravens over the Texans.
Initially, I wanted to say 42-37 because I think these two quarterbacks are just exceptional. However, I'm going to go with 35-31 instead. But I will give it to the Ravens. They look awfully good. 35-31. But if you see a 42-37 score, maybe I didn't go with my first gut, but but we both agree there'll be a lot of points scored. And if you have either of these two defenses, don't play them this week.
Well, then watch. We'll say this is going to be a high-scoring game, and the final score will be like 13-10.
Right, and the only reason why it'll be 13-10 is if Mother Nature has anything to say about it. So they always say slip, slide, and away. You don't know if it'll be in the rain or in the snow, but either way, those cleats are going to get a workout one way or the other. So we'll talk about the Atlanta Falcons. Can they win their 3rd game of the year and upset another divisional opponent? We'll call this a NASCAR game, where you have the Atlanta Speedway against the Charlotte Motor Speedway. What happens up in North Carolina?
Well, the Falcons' defense is much worse, obviously, than the Panthers' defense. The Falcons have just been leaking points to everyone. Now, for once, last week against, of all teams, the New Orleans Saints, they actually managed to, I believe, tie their season of sacks. I want to say they had 7 sacks going into last game, and ended up with 6 in this game against Drew Brees, sacking more times than he'd ever been hit in a game. I think part of that goes to the fact that Dan Quinn has given up defensive calling. sticking to just kind of the overall look and overall feel of the team as the head coach. I think that could provide some opportunity for the Falcons to stay competitive in this game. That being said, the Panthers have been very good against quarterbacks and wide receivers. They basically shut down tight ends this year. Where the Panthers have struggled is against running backs. And so I think that Brian Hill is a great streaming option. We talked about the people, trying to pick him up on waivers. I think that he should have solid RB2 numbers and could possibly put up running back 1 numbers. The Panthers have given up, on average over the last 5 weeks, 10 points over projection to running backs. So I think that Brian Hill should be in for a really solid week. As far as the Panthers go, the Falcons have not really been able to stop a whole lot of people on defense. And so Kyle Allen should have a decent game. I really like DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. I think DJ Moore puts up wide receiver 2 numbers. Samuel Moore, that flex play. And Christian McCaffrey, even in tough matchups, you're not going to sit him. So I still think he's a running back 1 no matter what. So overall, I think that the Panthers probably do win this game. And I'm going to say, I would say 24-17 Panthers.
You know what? That's the same score I was thinking too. 24-17. Exactly. Yeah, I'm going to stay with that score too. I will. No doubt about it. So it's okay to be even on the score. I thought it was a touchdown differential. And McCaffrey could definitely have a big game too. I thought the Packers did a good job containing him as much as they could. Then again, I think Mother Nature probably helped out too. But McCaffrey, if you have him as a fantasy play, I think that he devours the Falcons. So now we'll go to the Denver Broncos and the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are looking awfully good. Very impressive win down in Big D, Dallas. Now they got a Rocky Mountain D as in Denver.
Yeah, the Vikings have been playing very good on offense, and very quietly, the Broncos are top 8 in terms of giving up fantasy points to in terms of preventing teams from scoring fantasy points at various positions. Top 8 against, they're top 3 against quarterbacks, top 8 against wide receivers, and top 7 against tight ends. They're not quite as good against running backs. Top 12, top 13, so about middle of the road. That being said, they have kept the opposing team, the Broncos defense, kept opposing teams to about 4 to 5 points under projection at every position except tight end over the last 5 weeks. So they've been really playing stifling defense. I think that the Vikings should still produce for the most part in this game, but I look for a lot of that production to come out of Dalvin Cook. I think that he is the main weapon in this one. He is going to be a running back 1. I have him as a top 5 running back play every week. I can't change that just because of how dominant he has been all season. And really, he's the best play other than maybe Diggs. I don't really like Diggs. I think that Thielen is still out, and unless both of them are on the field, I think Diggs loses some viability fantasy wise, because I don't think he's necessarily good enough to take on top coverage, but can be very solid if the coverage is split between him and Thielen. As far as the Broncos go, the only real fantasy options I like in this one is Cortland Sutton going up against a team that's given up the 8th most amount of fantasy points to the wide receivers. Vikings are giving up 8 points over projection to wide receivers over the last 5 weeks. And Noah Fant, since Brandon Allen has become the quarterback, he's targeted Fant a lot. And so and with Joe Flacco going out, Fant has actually received 5 targets a game over the last 3 weeks. So he's getting more involved in the offense. So really it's Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant are the only guys I really like for this game. So for me, I think that the Vikings probably still win, but I think it's going to be a very close and probably low-scoring game. So I'm going to say probably 13-10 Vikings over the Broncos.
Yeah, see, I differ with you on that. I like the Vikings 28-10 in a